Hello and welcome to the Thinking Out Loud podcast. In this episode, I interviewed Prashant Venkatasubban on the role and importance of product management and where one can start learning it. Prashant makes an interesting case on how learning product management can also be helpful in your personal life. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. If you're just getting started and have some questions, or if you just want to discuss anything about product management in general, feel free to use the subreddit that I just set up for the Thinking Out Loud podcast. It's reddit.com/r/TOL podcast. Hi Prashant, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Hi Surya. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I look forward to it too.
Yeah. So I would like to give our listeners how this podcast came up. So I was just trying to have conversations with more and more people and start learning about a lot of things. And then I was very happy that you reached out saying we could discuss about this, and you were very interested in that. Saying that product development is something that's very important for people, and if we can get more people into thinking about this and people using it in their products, it's going to be awesome. So yeah, thanks for reaching out. I mean, that's why we're having the podcast now.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we start, I think it's good if you could give a slight background of who you are and what you do for the listeners.
Sure. So, hello everyone. I'm Prashant, and I'd like to call myself as a product manager. So there are typically roles that are out there, and I would like to bucket myself in the product manager list. I've been working on startups and products, both hardware and software, for the past 7 years, which was immediately after my graduation. I've worked in a company that was building speech recognition products, and then I went on to start my own company with a product called DevThon, which was basically a platform to bring engineers and designers together to prototype experiences in the field of healthcare, smart living, sustainable living, and cybersecurity. And eventually I moved on to try to focus myself to be able to build products and launch them, because in my experience I had been able to bring a product to a stage where people would start using it. But I wanted to get more of it, to see people using it and gather data there. So I went on to join a Dutch company which was building a web product. They had a lot of clients, and I was the lead engineer there. I was also managing everyday activities around features in that product. And right now I've moved out of that product too. Right now I'm on the lookout for new opportunities to work with technology teams as a product owner. So yeah, that's a little bit more than I wanted to say, but that's who I am.
Oh, nice. So how did you get into product management? I think your educational background was electrical engineering, right?
Yes.
How did you enter into this?
Yeah, so it's quite weird actually. Like, even in college, all of us have projects. And one of the most difficult things for me was to be able to, in fact, it was not just a project. Even when I was learning something, it was to be able to understand why is it that I'm learning this? What sort of an application can this course or this topic have, and where would I possibly use it? And even when I was doing my project, we were two of us in the electrical engineering department who worked together on a project in the power grid, which was to have we designed a DRAM to be able to quickly switch circuits in power lines. So again, there we were still trying to wonder how this can be a real world application, and that's where I stepped across this whole deal behind it's this very vast topic of product management, which is to get into your customer's head, or understand who your customers are first of all, what sort of a problem they are facing, and how is it that you can give a solution that will simply blow their mind, and it'll improve their lives and help them understand that this is one of the things that I would have missed if I hadn't been using it. I wanted to be part of products like these, but I never knew the term product management at that point of time. And over a course of time, because my goal was to be able to be part of products that significantly improve people's lives, I started looking into these topics of what product management is, and what kind of techniques are around it, and how I can utilize it whenever I work with any kind of team around products. And really, what happened was, and that's first of all, that was how I got into product management. And really, what happened was it really transformed the way I looked at my life. Also, like if it was anything as simple as setting up a room, or changing the way a room looks, your bedroom looks, that also became sort of all these principles started coming into my head when I was doing that. So, and that's how I got into product management. Unfortunately for me, there were no courses around product management during my time. I'm not sure if it's still there, but then that's how I stumbled upon product management.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, we'll get into the point. We'll get into how product management can help you in your own life. I mean, I find that interesting. I haven't heard people specially talk about this before. So yeah, I think we can get into that after a while. But so not having a formal background in this field, does that hurt you?
So the thing is, it's just like imagine if you wanted to build a really cool robot, if you're interested in robotics, but you don't know what an electrical circuit does, or even to the point where what a diode does. It really and once you start learning it, you really wished you were professionally learning it in your college. You would start wondering why I didn't learn it, but then nothing stops you from learning it right now. So there are a lot of resources out there, which is free, by the way, and then you can start learning about it. It didn't really hurt me, but where it struck me was that I wish I knew this before. That is, I knew the practical sense of applying product management into something. I had some sort of understanding about it, but then I didn't know the theory behind it, which is also very important, because you have a lot of calculation associated with this subject. You have a lot of analysis, you have a lot of decision making, and it's all structured if you really want to learn it as a course. I wish I was able to see that before, but otherwise I think I'm glad I got to know it even before I got into a company, because I started reading about it. But yeah, I really wish that I knew it in a structured manner, at least then.
Oh, that's interesting. So let's take a step back, and some of the listeners may be wondering what's project management. Even I didn't know about it much until very recently. So after you contacted me, I looked around, took a small course to learn more about this. But how would you define project management in very simple terms?
Right. First of all, it's very interesting that you're using project and product management interchangeably.
Oh yeah,
it's actually there's nothing wrong in that, in the sense that it's very easily used interchangeably, because it's also because it's easier to say project management because you are associated with projects.
Yeah.
But there's actually a good amount of difference when industries talk about, when a company talks about it, between project and product management. I'll not get into that right now, but I'll talk about what product management is. I just wanted to make this point. Sorry. So can you repeat your question?
Yeah. So how would you explain what product management is in simple terms?
Right. So in simple terms, for first-time listeners, what I would say basically is, if you have an idea to build something, product management is a vertical where you understand what is it that you're trying to build, for whom are you trying to build it, and what needs to go into what is being built. And after building it and giving it to people, how are they perceiving it? How are they taking it? Is there anything to improve upon it? What is it that you can do to stay on top in terms of the product or project that you or whatever you have built, that idea that you have built. So it's basically a vertical subject by itself with different methodologies to be able to understand you to take your product from idea to really make sense of what it is, and further understand how it is helping people. If it isn't, why isn't it helping people? How can I do something to what do I need to do to make sure that it's helping people? So it's a madness to build a product, but product management is basically a method to this madness. So
Okay.
that's what I would define as product management.
Oh, interesting. Can you give me a specific example of product management, maybe one of your previous projects?
Oh yeah, sure. Actually, in fact, I think the best example that your listeners can associate with is like nowadays everybody has an idea in their head and they want to start up. Maybe somebody wants to take that product into the market, that idea into the market. But let's say you want to build a very simple a device that helps people who have shoulder injury. Okay, you might have seen your friends or family suffer with shoulder injury. Somebody in their old age suffer with shoulder injury. So once you know that there is a problem, but you know that the problem is there only for one person, right? How is it that you can understand how many people are facing this problem? What sort of problem are they facing? How is the problem being currently solved? This is the initial part. But when you come to building something to address that problem, how is it that you can make sure that this product is helpful in their lives? How is it that you can measure and say that this is how it is helping? And how is it that you can measure and take feedback and say this is what needs to be done additionally? So for that shoulder injury device, you have different ways to take feedback from people. But then once you start building this product, you are not going to be the only one building it at the end of the day. You're going to have a team around you, right?
Yeah.
So once you have a team of engineers and designers, how is it that you can allocate tasks to them? How is it that you can structure further on how this product needs to evolve and develop and go into the market? That is what product management is significantly used currently for. There are different methodologies in it, but then how is it that you can engage your team to contribute to the vision of your idea is what product management is used for.
I mean, this doesn't sound very complicated. It sounds like something that everyone does every time. And it sounds like something that you don't have a lot to learn on. It sounds very simple. I mean, just think clearly, see if your project is helping the people. I mean, it all seems pretty obvious. Is that how you look at it?
It's a little bit more deeper than that, because it's also not just about it's also not just about like the things that I said. It's much more broader, because once you have an idea, you're also struggling to understand how this idea can become bigger. And if your vision is to help healthcare industry and patients in the healthcare industry, how is it that you can capture ideas around this product and work on furthering it? Is what product management, the whole vertical of product management is about. But the reason I say that it's not as easy to just read and understand is because this is a subject which gives you knowledge not through reading only. It's an area which you work on constantly in your life. You adapt to these techniques and you keep using it, and that's where you start getting a lot of input in terms of improving yourself across product management itself.
Okay.
So you can read about these things and then just like dust off. I mean, you might be sitting in one place and reading about it and then dust yourself off and then say, I'm ready for this. But then when you get into a team and when you actually start using these techniques, you see that some of the things are not mentioned there. It cannot be mentioned because it's all entirely based on experience. For example, one of the things in product management where it's not really, you cannot talk about it, is because there's no theory around it, is conflict resolution among teams. So how can you resolve conflicts in team is a significant topic that is discussed, but there is no like theory to it, like there is no template or steps to it.
Okay.
So you need to be able to practice it also.
Okay. So let's stick to this point of conflict management. So I haven't read anything about product management before. So if two people, so I'll just propose what I think is the best solution when two people fight. And because you have some background about product management, maybe you'll be able to see where I'm missing stuff. So if two of the employees, two of team members who are working with me,
right,
are not happy with each other, maybe I think I would ask them to come into my room and sit and talk to them, mediate, and try to have a rational conversation and try to see what exactly this person is saying, what exactly the other person is saying, and try to look for some kind of middle ground.
So that's the thing, right? So it's not really product management here, but then when you start practicing these techniques, you start realizing that your decisions are more data informed. It cannot be like, there is some amount of like, the product management will not teach you how to emotionally handle situations. It will teach you that a product's ego is bigger than anybody else's ego in the company or in the team. That's what it will teach you. And then when you, like in the example that you said where there's a conflict in your team, without getting too much into the specifics, let's say there's a conflict in your team, what you will start taking a decision on is, how is this impacting my product? What is going to happen? Maybe they have a conflict to use different set of tools. Maybe they have a conflict to use different set of platforms. Or maybe two designers are saying that that's not the way to do it. Or one of them is saying that's the way to do it. Your role as a product owner who's using these techniques and methodologies will be to say, what is best suited for this product? That's where your thinking will start kicking off towards the direction of saying that, how is it impacting my customers, or how is it impacting the people who are using my product? At the end of the day, making a button green or red is something that you might have to resolve it. It's a very simple thing that I'm saying, but then you might have to resolve it not based on how each of them are able to put a case to you, but on how the product, that change impacts people. This is what you will be able to get a direction on.
Oh, interesting. Oh,
right.
Okay. Yeah. I think I have slightly better understanding now, but maybe I have to read more and then I'll get a better idea.
Right.
So let's get into specific methodologies that we can use for product management.
Right.
Can you tell me a specific methodology for product management?
Like one of the most famous methodology in product management for new teams and new companies, it's called Agile. It's called Agile methodology, which is to be able to build whatever you want, your ideas, into very quick iterations. So it's a relatively new methodology. I mean, it's quite old in terms of the number of years, but then it's new because of the way people have started using it, and it's spoken about a lot, but it's like teams, larger companies can start using it. For example, startups which are like 4 or 5 years old start using it because they see value in it. So so one of the methods is called Agile methodology, which is to be able to build something into quick iterations. See, there's no defined like statement to talk about what agile product management is, but it's basically to be able to have a set of ideas and have a set of tasks based on those ideas to be able to achieve a vision of that product, and to be able to do this in quicker iterations. So if we cut it down into like simple pieces, how is it that, I'm sorry, if we are able to have, if we have like a huge thing to do, how can we cut it down into simpler sub pieces, like sub problems, and how can we divide these into tasks and hand it out to people who are working in that team? And how can we come back in a set timeline and say, this, we have achieved this, and if we have not achieved it, why haven't we achieved it, and what do we need to do?
Okay.
So that's what agile methodology is about, right?
Okay. So
there are also, I'm sorry, but there are also like other methodologies which I'm not sure about. There are like huge companies adopt these methodologies, but then I'm not entirely sure about them because I didn't have a need to learn it in whatever products I worked on.
Okay. So when you read about agile techniques, is it what I call it, or agile framework of thinking? How do I refer to that?
Again, it's I mean, if semantics are not important, but you can, like, people say different things. Some of them call it methodology, some of them call it techniques. Some say no, it's not, it's a framework of thinking. It's just how, it's the way you look at it.
Okay. So whenever you read these principles or guidelines that are given in this agile framework of thinking, is it like you're like, wow, this is a wonderful idea, I have never thought of it before? Or are you like, oh, this is fairly obvious? Like, how are each and every principles in agile techniques that you read, how do you feel about them?
Because so the thing, the reason I was able to, the way I took it forward is when I started working on the first product in the first startup where I started my career, building speech recognition. So that's where I had to work with the research team which was building a speech recognition engine and system, and look at their research and translate into products. I knew what was the vision of the company. I knew we had tested bunch of use cases. We had interviewed a lot of people around use cases of a potential product that we are going to build, how it could add value. But like I said, there was no method to this, and I was really concerned, like, how can we not be able to, you can't just go and speak to people and say, would you like this particular product? They will say yes or no, and then you'll have to ask them why. There's no method to this. How can you gather proper data, right? So that's where, when I started reading this, I was able to fit it in. So it worked the other way around for me. I didn't start reading about it and then applying it somewhere. I worked on a few things and I found problems that there was no particular technique to it, and then I started reading this. I started fitting it in and saying, this is where I could have used it, and this is where I can use it next, right? And this is something really great because, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners, I'm sure they're students also, right?
Yeah.
They would really be able to relate to this because eventually they need to either do a project, or they would have already done a project and going on to work in a company. So they will be able to relate to this and say, this is where I can use it, this is great. So that's like it's principally about how you can plan, how you can forecast on how to achieve those plans and what potential product could be, and how do you actually build this product. And in a student project's case, there's no marketing, but then how can you work with a team to showcase what you have built, which is basically what marketing is.
Okay.
So when I started reading this, I was able to fit it in and say, this is great. And there were some things which I didn't need, which I read but did not use. But eventually I might get to use it at some point of time.
Okay. So how long would it take a person to learn these agile techniques? Is it like a huge amount of stuff to read, or is it just a little bit?
There's a lot to it actually, because certain parts of product management also involves a lot of understanding around analytics, for example, because you need to be able to design systems that capture data and also understand how you can analyze that data, right? So I think we had a discussion some time back around how you can have a goal and measure it.
Yeah.
Right? you can simply say that, like, you can emotionally say that my goal is to have my product being used by 100,000 people, right? But then how is it that you can say that, like, is that enough? Is it enough that 100,000 people have used it? Or do you want 100,000 people to use it and also, like, their life has changed in this way, or some of them come back to you, give feedback, or out of that 100,000 people you have 40,000 people who are facing other problems which add value and you can solve them, they're willing to pay for it. This is like this whole product management itself encompasses multiple other topics which you can choose to either learn, or you can say that's not my part of my syllabus, in the sense that I don't want to learn that right now.
Okay.
But I think if somebody is really wanting to get into this, there are courses that are there. It's paid courses, but even they chunk it down into different topics. And I would suggest anybody getting through this at an early stage to spend at least 5 to 6 months not just reading it, but reading and implementing it. Just like it goes the same with anything else, right? If you learn something, you have to start using it, start practicing it. Only then you will get used to it.
Yeah.
So it's not you can learn the theory behind it, you can read about it, but then once you start reading it, you will fall into this whole black hole of getting into other topics. Because product management is like one, although I'm mentioning it as a vertical, it has like multiple other subtopics, like wiki links. It has a lot of wiki links. Like one of the things you need to understand is a roadmap. What is a roadmap? Which is that your product roadmap, in the sense, like, you have in 6 months, what is it that your product needs to have? That's a roadmap.
Okay, it's like first 2 months you have to brainstorm on the idea, next month code, next month debug. Is it like that?
Sort of. The thing with product management is you can't do this. What you said is basically doing it in like tandem. You'll have to do this first, second, third, fourth. That's not what this methodology will teach you, or at least in terms of Agile. What it will teach you is how to be able to chunk down your parts in a way that you do it parallelly, right? See, for example, let's say you have let's take the example of the product that I said, which is the shoulder injury device. And you're going to raise money, and people believe in you now, and that they've given you money to start working on this product. And then now you have hired designers, engineers, security developers to make sure the product is secure if it has communication in it. And then maybe you have a doctor on board. You're paying him some sort of a consulting charge. And then you have testers who test the product, who write code to test. You have marketing team which markets the product. Now, once you've hired, you need all of these people, but then you can't start engaging them one by one. You can't say all the other guys wait while the engineers figure out how to build this. Or you can't say testing guys hold on because engineering guys are building it. Marketing team, why don't you just work along with something else? Like, you can't do this because it's expensive. You need to engage the team in a way that it adds value to your whole vision on the whole, and you can't utilize them one by one. This will teach you how can you chunk your problem into sub problems and handle tasks in a way that at the end of this whole roadmap, I achieve one particular statement or one particular goal that I wanted to achieve with the product. So how do I engage them in a way that I can do this? Is what this whole topic encompasses.
Oh, that's interesting. And I hope the listeners are finding this interesting too. And I think I'll leave some of the links about where you can learn more about Agile in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. So yeah, that's where you can learn more. Just look at the links, and I'm sure you'll be able to go forward from there.
That will be great. Actually, there are a lot of resources out there, and I'm sure Surya has also collected a lot of resources. And I also wanted to add, I'm sure everybody out there is not going to end up, running a startup or creating a new product from scratch. Some of them are definitely going to go and join teams which are already building products. They're going to go and work in companies which have really good vision, good philosophy of work, good culture of work. And these techniques are really valued by those companies. Most of them really look
Hello,
at a
Prashant.
person's
I think I
attitude,
lost you.
if you have freshers, and their knowledge.
Hello.
But if you're also able to showcase that
Hello.
you understand these things, and you have, even if you have utilized these, part of these techniques in your project, in your life, they really, really value it.
Hello.
Yeah, so I think that's what I wanted to also say. Like, if somebody is not just about wanting to build a product using these techniques, it's also valuable to them if they join a company where the culture of products is really core to the company. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So I want to learn a little more about what project managers actually do.
Right.
I mean, if I think of a project manager, I mean it's like setting deadlines, brainstorming, distributing work. That's the kind of feeling I have when I think of a product manager. Is that right?
Yes, you're right. So I wanted to bring this to attention. The challenge with these semantics behind the product manager, project manager, some companies also call it program manager, and some companies like startups call it product owner. There are a lot of different terms for this particular role, and there are different responsibilities for each role also. So when you're looking at a company, you need to understand what they are calling it and what that term means. But in my definition of a product owner, it's exactly what you said. Product owner is, or a product manager in some companies as they call it, is someone who understands the vision of the company, the theme of the company itself, or the theme of the products that they are building, and they have a framework around understanding new products that they want to build. And product owners take this vision, work on a product, and translate that vision into the product. And their responsibility is to make sure that the company's vision is communicated through that product, right? So that's a significant part of the product owner's responsibility. But otherwise, internally in a team, it's about being able to chalk out and understand user requirements, or understand user feedback on existing products, which will give them an opportunity to build newer features. Work with the team. They'll end up working with design team, engineering teams, and marketing teams to be able to convert this vision and user feedback into new product features, and work with the team to execute it, measure and understand how they have been successful. If they have not been successful, how can they further, what do they need to do to further be successful, and how can this new feature or new product be communicated. They work with the marketing team. So a lot of companies have different roles. For example, some of them ask for the product owner role to be very good at data analysis. You could be very good at analyzing data even through Excel, but then can you understand how to collect feedback, how you can measure responses of customers and translate that into either something that you need to add, or something that you need to work on, or something that you need to fix in a product. This encompasses, shortly, very briefly, this is what encompasses a product owner or product manager's role.
Does the product manager also have to know about the technical tools that the team used to build something?
Right, that's a very good question. So like I said, some companies, for example, Google doesn't have a role called product owner. They have something called as technical program manager or technical product manager. I'm not really sure about what the role is. They hire people who are really, really good at technology. In fact, some roles actually ask for PhD. For example, if they are hiring a technical product manager for let's say search, or let's say ads. For example, search, they might have to know a lot of algorithms and engineering around search, the topic of search itself. They need to understand frameworks which on which search is built. They need to understand SQL, which is very important part of analytics and data. Some companies ask for Hadoop, for example. It's a data analytics tool. And if you're talking about ads, some companies want people who understand how ads are designed, how what goes on into copywriting. So it really depends on which product you are going to be part of. But then personally for me, I think a product owner needs to understand some part of, if not like entirely detailed part of it, they need to understand the basics of engineering. If it's a web product, then understand algorithms and understand the engineering behind building web products. If it's a hardware product, for example, I'll give you a very good example. You know the company ABB, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think so. ABV?
ABB. It's a
ABB. No.
Yeah, it's a they build electrical products. They build. I mean, it's if you have a fuse box in your house, probably it's built by ABB. It's just a European company. They build power and automation tools. So their technical program manager asks for somebody very good at electrical engineering background.
Yeah.
So the other important part for a product owner, I feel, is also to understand design. They need to understand user experience. They need to understand the concepts of user experience, how to make products, that how to see how people use products or how people use anything and improve that. They need to understand this. So I think a product owner needs to have a bit of engineering understanding and a bit of design sense and understanding.
Yeah. And it's also important for him to be very clear with communication, right?
Absolutely. Because, I think that's, it's a thumb rule. Like if you want to manage products, if you want to manage a team building a product, if you want to manage a product with a team, you need to understand how to be able to communicate what you want to say. Because you need to inspire the team to also build the product, right? That's your role. Your role is to own the product, or at least that segment of the product, and make sure that it's successful. And how you do that is you need to be able to communicate to your team. You need to be able to communicate to your management also, because at the end of the day, you're the one who's going back to them and saying, this is how we are performing, this is what we are doing. And more importantly, you need to be able to communicate to the customers. It's very, very important.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, how do you think one can improve with this communication? Does it come with experience, or can they read something online, or how do they improve?
I think a lot of reading for me has been the key driver, because quite frankly, I have worked with a lot of teams, but then I think being able to read and understand concepts and articulate them is what was the key. Like reading a lot was the key. Reading a lot of books in general, whatever interests you around. Like there are certain books that really interest me, that's around cognition, neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and those really give me ideas. And having a strong hold on the subject also, for example, makes you very clear at communication, right? Don't you think?
That is one fact, that you have to be knowledgeable about what you're talking about,
right?
And I think there's also another factor that needs a bit of practice. I mean, there are many people who have really good ideas, especially students. I think in India, engineering students, they have never given any kind of public talks, or never into debates or anything. Most of them are never into this stuff. So I think they also struggle at communicating, even though they have the knowledge inside their heads.
I think in that case, practice is what makes them better. They need to be able to uh, take the opportunity whenever they get it to work with a team, and then involve um, in brainstorming sessions, which is also key in this technique, by the way, in the agile methodology. One of the key things sometimes is to bring the team together and then brainstorm on ideas.
Okay.
So practice, I think two things then in that case. You said practice, which I clearly agree to, and reading. These are two things that you can improve on. And I think the other thing also is to have for students, it's nice to be part of these or at least even start clubs where you just simply start discussing things. You don't have to, like that week they can discuss about AI. It doesn't even have to be something that's already there. Maybe they discuss some really crazy, silly, far-fetched ideas, which is how innovation also happens, by the way. And in the course of that, they also learn how to talk, how to handle any differing opinions, how to handle difference in views.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Yeah. So as a product manager, are there times when you have to sometimes make a promise to the client and tell him confidently that this is going to happen, even though you're not confident yet? Are there times where you have to be slightly pretentious towards your clients?
That's interesting, actually. See, that's where I think this whole framework gives you an upper hand, which is that it's the other way around. You will be very clear on saying no. You will be very clear on saying this is not possible. Not because your team cannot do it, or not because you think, not because somebody thinks. It's because out of data you can say, because you're data informed, that you have collected data. And if you haven't, you will say that. You will say, I don't know about it, I'll come back to you. Or you will say, no, it's not possible. So there is never a time where you will end up promising something that you really can't deliver, which I think is just silly, isn't it? Because if you can't, why do you even promise? So I've learned that this whole methodology and techniques can help you be very clear about what you want to deliver. And that's very important, because at the end of the day, the team, which is like design team, marketing team, sales team, and engineering team, all come together to trust you as a product manager to make the right decisions on behalf of the team. They put that responsibility into your hand. And I think no, you shouldn't end up giving promises to a client unless you have not measured it, in which case you're not doing your job of being the correct product manager. So that's the reason I said it's the other way around. You will be so clear, because you're data informed, that you will be able to say yes at the right time and no at the right time.
And you'll also be able to say, I'm not sure, I have to look into this.
Absolutely, because you don't have enough data behind it.
Okay. Nice. That's interesting. So what if you don't deliver on time? Can the clients file a legal case on you? Is that how it works?
I'm not sure about how it works in bigger companies. They have something called as service contracts, right? Typically in service companies, they bill their employees. If a project is creeping up and then it's overflowing into the next cycle, I think they have some sort of a penalty, or they have there's nothing like legal, but I think they'll have some sort of a penalty to the client. This is mostly related to service. I'm not really sure. I've not entirely been part of a service oriented way of working, but then it's also like, if you're able to translate this into a product, it's like you're promising the client, let's say for example, Amazon promises to deliver you in certain time and they don't, right? What do? They pay the penalty.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the same way. Or let's say if I'll give you a very good example. I booked a flight some time back. I'm flying out today, so I'm out of the country, and I booked a flight some time back. And on the platform that I booked, it said that it is booked, but then I got a call saying that their seats are not available.
Oh,
And
okay.
I couldn't, I mean, like, I planned for this, I paid for it, and this is not, it's not done. I don't feel it, I won't feel like using the product again. And this is what I communicated. I said, your product promised me to get a seat on a flight, and I paid for it, and you said that the flight is booked, but you didn't. So they spent about half an hour trying to fix the issue, and they came back and they said that we have booked a flight for you. And they also told me that the flight prices increased and we had to pay whatever increased. So they paid the price for it, because they promised that,
interesting.
they made a promise to me, even though I'm not a client, as in I'm not their, I'm not a business. I'm the customer. One customer also mattered to them, which I really appreciated.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And as a product manager, do you have to predict what could go wrong in your product and try to figure out strategies for that also?
Absolutely, I think that's one of the most important things. That's a very good question. It's important not just to take user feedback and incorporate it into your product. It's also to say that these are the potential, not just issues, but potential needs that the customers will start having at one point of time, and we need to be ahead of their needs. How do we at least put out part of the feature and measure if they really need it, at what time will they need it? A significant part of the product owner role is also to be able to predict into what a potential feature or potential need for the customer might be in the future. Even if it is a customer who's a single person, like in a business which is catering to customers, or if the business is itself catering to other businesses. I think the product manager holds a good amount of responsibility for that too.
Okay. So do they plan for every possible scenario? I mean, so for example, there is a chance that just 1 week before your product is delivered, your core developer falls sick and he cannot work for a week. Is that something that product managers have in mind?
I think they do. When they are when they are planning a particular what they call as so in Agile it's called a sprint, right? A sprint which is either 2 weeks or 3 weeks. They need to be able to consider that somebody might fall sick, somebody might want to take leave, or something might not be delivered, and the estimations and planning always go according to these delta situations. And this is what comes out of experience. Nobody can like become expert at it in the first day. And it also depends on the culture of the company. For example, if the culture of the company is 9 to 5, then it's going to be difficult. But if the culture of the company is what I mean to say is, like, if the freedom of work is to the extent that the developers take it upon themselves, or the engineers and designers take it upon themselves to deliver, then the product manager's role will be very different. They will be able to make better decisions. But either way, they need to be able to look into this and say, this could happen in between the whole product development cycle, and these things could go wrong, right? They need to be able to see that through as well. But not, what is most important here? Nothing of what anyone does in any team, in anywhere in the world, any person, I'm not talking about just product managers, anyone, it's never 100%. You cannot, I must apologize that I was late for this interview, because I couldn't predict that the traffic would be so bad. Or, I missed one train which was 3 minutes, and then I had to wait for the other train which was 3 minutes later. I couldn't predict that. But then what is more important is to see what went wrong, and take the data behind what went wrong, and use that data to be well informed about the next time you take a similar decision. That is the attitude that completely differentiates the very good product managers from the ones who are not as good.
Yeah. That's interesting. So now you have interestingly mapped the idea of product management into your personal life, like missing a train or not compensating for traffic.
Right.
So let's get back to that point. How do you map product management into your personal life?
Well, so I think I can give you a very good example. So right now I'm on the look for new opportunities, right? And then, so there's a lot of things that goes into when you're looking for a place to work. A lot of decisions need to be taken, a lot of actions need to be taken. There are like, you need to meet new people, understand the industry, connect with someone who you don't know, and these are all different tasks for one goal, which is to work, which for one goal of mine, which is to get into a new opportunity. I've been using product management techniques to map this whole project of mine, which is to be able to get into a new opportunity. So I've actually have like a bunch of tasks, which is my product backlog, and then I split that into different sprints. So my sprint in this case is like 3 days per sprint, which is very short for product development, but then this is enough for what I am doing. So I have 4 sprints. So in 4 iterations, I have different tasks of meeting people or updating my CV or writing a blog article or working on a new project, and trying to measure on how I'm achieving this, right? So I think it's because this is what I'm doing right now, I'm able to give this example. But then eventually, when you get into using these techniques, you will start mapping them into every part of your life. Whether it's a simple project of renovating your house, or if it is as complex as working in a huge product team that's building the next great technology. I think I've been looking at it that way. It's very, very it's nice to see, like it's sort of divine for me to see it that way, that it's creeping into my life. The techniques are creeping into my life, which is really good and pleasant. And I think it will eventually start happening because this is what I want to be, and I want to practice it in every way as much as possible.
Oh, that's very nice. So is there something else you would like to tell the listeners? I think I have covered most of. I think I had a few questions, and they're kind of clear right now inside my head. Do you have anything else you want to specify here?
Nothing much, actually. I just wanted to tell the listeners that if anybody is interested around these topics, and if they want to discuss something, in fact, if I would love if there is something new to learn because of these conversations, that they can reach out to me through the forum. That if there is any way to reach out, they can reach out to me.
Yeah. So we are starting a Reddit, a subreddit, I guess. I haven't used Reddit before, so yeah, we have a subreddit where people can discuss various ideas, and if you have any questions, you can post it there, and I will look into it, and Prashant will look into it, and I think that's a good place where you can start discussing with people and start learning stuff. So that was the primary goal of this podcast, to get some people started with working on product management and learning about what this really is. And as Prashant said, it's very interesting that it not only teaches you how to manage your projects, but it really maps onto everything that you do in your life. So even if you're not specific, if at this point of time you don't have a specific product to manage or a project to manage, I still think you can go ahead and learn this and then see how it maps onto reality, and you would also prepare yourself for any future projects that you're going to take up.
Surya, I just got reminded that I think what I wanted to also tell the listeners is, if you want to also get started into tuning yourself to a different way of thinking, which is not the normal way of thinking, because you need to train yourself, there's a really good book called Thinking Fast and Slow. It's a really good book for people who want to adapt their thinking process into their thought process into something that will add value for the rest of their lives. It's by Daniel Kahneman. The author is Daniel Kahneman, and the book is called Thinking Fast and Slow. He's the Nobel Prize winner in 2002, I guess, if I'm not wrong. He was awarded the Nobel Prize, and the book is part of. I mean, it's sort of like he's writing about all the different kinds of research he has done, but majorly about cognition and how the human brain is adapted into thinking fast and slow, and how you can switch it easily.
Yeah. Even I've heard about that book a lot. It's on my reading list. So yeah, I'll probably read that soon.
Right. It's a beautiful book.
Yeah. Okay, then it's been really nice to have you here, Prashant.
It was lovely talking to you, Surya. I think apart from the podcast, if you get a chance, I would love to have conversations with you. And I also want to tell the listeners that it's great talking to Surya. If you get a chance to talk to him somewhere, don't miss it out.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Okay, I'll see you then.
see you around, and thanks to all the listeners also.